Good afternoon. I was reminded today, someone asked me how many forecasts we have done. And this is our 39th North Georgia forecast. It's been an incredible ride. We may have some special things to do for next year on our 40th anniversary, and we might even give ourselves a test to see how well we did. I think we're probably a B+. So one day, a professor entered his classroom, and he handed out a pop test. And he put it down, face down in front of their desks. And then he said, I'd like you to all turn it over. And they were surprised. All it had on it was a black dot. In the center of a white piece of paper was a black dot, and he was insistent that they write down their thoughts about what they were seeing. They were just befuddled. They started writing away as much as they could, scratching their head. What does that mean? Think about it a minute. What does that mean? He gathered up the papers and started to read them one by one in front of the audience. And he said, I'm not going to grade you on this. I just wanted to give you something to think about. No one wrote about the white part of the paper. They wrote about the black dot. They wrote about the density of the dot, the size of the dot, the position of the dot on the paper. And while we have a white page to observe, we are focused in on the black dot. Our life is a gift given to us by God with love and care, and we always have reasons to celebrate. Nature renewing itself every day, our friends around us, and the job that provides our livelihood. The miracles that we see every day. However, we insist we are focusing in on the dark spots, the health issues that bother us, the lack of money, the complicated relationship with a family member, the disappointment with a friend. The dark spots are very, very small compared to everything else we have in our lives. But they're the ones that pollute our minds. So it is with North Georgia. From Clayton to Ellijay, Lawrenceville to Lula, we're too focused on the black dot, dark dots of our community. The real opportunity is that white space, the brilliant white of opportunity in each of our families, our community, our church, our business. Our objective is to look at those opportunities, shape our communities, and build a faster, stronger community. Our tagline as a company is we build community. So I want you to take your eyes away from that black spot in North Georgia. We need to quit tearing our community apart with harsh words, criticism, and needless noise. What you're here tonight is what we provide. We are opportunity people, but our job is also to share with you the good, the bad, sometimes the ugly. But in between all of that, our job is to sift through the opportunity, the white space. And you're going to hear from 3 folks today. Actually, you're going to hear from 5. That will present our forecast trends. And for, without ado, Tommy Howard.
So I have a professor story as well. This one you probably have all heard. This is one that we've heard for many years. But the professor walks in the room with a jar. He puts the jar in front of the class and he puts golf balls in the jar. And then he asks the classroom, he says, is the jar full? And of course some of the people say, of course, yeah, the jar is full. Then he brings out a bag of rocks and pebbles. He puts them, and they fall in between all of the golf balls in the jar. And he asks the question again, is the jar full? They say, yeah, of course the jar is full. So he brings out a bag of sand. and he pours sand and it fills up the entire jar in between the rocks, the pebbles, and the golf balls. And they said again, is it full? Yes, of course it's full. And then he pops a beer. He pours the beer into the jar and it goes in between all the grains of sand. And at that point, the question is the jar full? Well, we ask the same question, is North Georgia full? We hear that question all the time. We hear it in the media, we hear it in county commission meetings, we hear it amongst ourselves and HOAs. Oh, North Georgia is full. We have no more room to grow, and please let's not let anybody else in. We hear that all the time. So, we decided we would look at the numbers. So, we took 21 counties throughout North Georgia, and that's our jar. 1.5 million, roughly, million people within these 21 counties in North Georgia. And then we asked ourselves, how many square miles are within that? 6,217. So we divided that number to figure out, okay, how many people do we have per square mile? 250 people per square mile within 21 counties of North Georgia. The question is, are we full? Now, the argument that can be made too is, hey, we have lakes and rivers and we have mountains and we have land that cannot be developed. So let's take that out as well. So let's just say we have 500 people per square mile. So how do we compare to the rest of the United States? How do we compare? Now, to be fair, these are major U.S. cities. I'm talking about an area of North Georgia, a much more encompassing area. But just look at New York City, for example. 8.4 million people. They have a population of 28,000 people within a square mile. We have 500. Now, New York's probably not fair because that's a small space. But look at Nashville, look at Atlanta. We're still looking at thousands of people within square miles of the density of those areas. When here in North Georgia, we're looking at 500. Now it's a matter of perspective, just like the jar. The students that thought the jar was full when the golf balls were in, or when the pebbles or the sand. And there's people who have perspective to say, hey, are we full? Now why do we think that we're full? There's a reason for that. And I will tell you, as you look around, excuse me, clicker's a little sensitive. Oops. Let me get back to this. So, I'm sorry, I'm missing a slide. But the reason we look forward is two reasons: traffic and zoning and infrastructure. Traffic, we can see that every day on our roads. We look around, and today I think there was an accident on Jesse Jewell that bogged down Jesse Jewell and E. Butler, and we see that and we feel that every day. And we say, God, there's a ton of traffic. You see it in Metro Atlanta. You see, when we go to zoning meetings, you see issues with, hey, we don't have enough room, we don't have enough infrastructure to support the growth that we have coming in. And we see that and we recognize that is a challenge. But the good news is that we live in a very, very desirable place. We live here, and that's why we live here, but so do other people, and we will continue to grow. And we do believe our population will continue to grow, and our population and our infrastructure will need to grow, and a lot of things will need to grow with it. But the question today is, are we full? I don't think so. I think we have plenty of room to continue to expand and to share this wonderful place that we have with the rest of the world and the rest of the country. 2, absorption. So this really gets to the fact of what has happened as far as growth. I just talked about that. We're growing here in North Georgia. We're doing it in 3 different phases. The first one's industrial, okay? And I will tell you, back in 2019 to about 2021, and I call it the COVID boom years, and we saw a tremendous amount of growth. We saw a tremendous amount of opportunity. We saw new houses being built, new industry being built, investments being made, apartments being built, and there was money behind that. There was performance being done. But those performances were being based on a certain amount of opportunity. It was also being based on the fact that our growth would continue over a certain amount of pace over those years. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't keep up the pace, and so those performances haven't done that. So what has that done to North Georgia? Has it slowed us down? Has it changed our dynamics? Well, let's look at the numbers. Today, we have over 250 to 280 million square feet on 85, I-95, and I-75. We only have a 4% vacancy within that. About 10 to 15 million square feet are available amongst that percentage. That's not too bad. We have 8 to 10 million under construction in 2024. That property is already back, it's online. So we have absorbed, and we are continuing to absorb the opportunity. Now, have we slowed down? Yes, we have. And are those investors going at a slower pace? Yes, they are. But the good news is we are absorbing that here in North Georgia. Let's look at multifamily. Today, and I will tell you, we all look around and say, gosh, we have so many apartments. There are apartments being built everywhere, all over Gainesville, all over Hall County. Today, we have a 6% vacancy. So we still have a strong absorption amongst our multifamily. Our average rent's about $1,850, which has actually gone down. We approached over $1,900. We've seen a small correction within the average rent size. We have estimated 8,000 apartment units here in Hall County. And then single family. Today, are we absorbing it? Today we have a 3.8 month supply of housing. Yes, we are absorbing. An average is about the normal market 6 to 7 months. So we're still seeing an undersupply of housing within our market. We're seeing a 54-day average days on market, and we have an average price point of $511,000 here in Hall County, or excuse me, in North Georgia. That is a tremendous amount, a high average amongst our communities. And then lastly, I'll share with you the trend of the silent recession. So we hear that word recession. We experienced it in 2008 through about 2013. Most of you probably remember it pretty well. It impacted a lot of people. It impacted a lot of lives. It impacted a lot of businesses. But today we think there is a silent recession, and it's a little bit different. But look at what's impacting us. Food prices. Now this is from 21 to 25. Food prices are up over 30%. You know it when you just went to the grocery store to buy all the bread and milk and all the eggs that you needed for the winter storm that you probably still have sitting in your fridge, but you went and you bought it. Gas is up 30% over that period of time. Housing, and I'll show you a chart in a minute, is up 50 to 60% over that same period of 4 years. Your house almost doubled in price. But wages only went up 18%. Wages in 2021, this is average median household income was $79,000. That was in North Georgia. Today, it's almost $96,000. Seems like a lot of money, but it didn't keep up with the pace of all the other goods and services that we need for the recession. So this is the chart I was speaking of. Y'all seen this before, but this is the disparity between median income and median home price. And today we have about 4.7 multiple difference between median income and median home price and median income. That math does not work. For the bankers in the room, they'll tell you that's very difficult to loan money on that kind of math. And that's part of the challenge that we see with our economy today. First-time home buyers, part of that is impacting with that cost of good, and we hear about that, first-time home buyers. Today's average age of the first-time home buyer is 40 years old. To wait till you're 40 years old. I bought my first house when I was 24 years old. And most of you in this room probably were in your mid-20s when you did that as well. That is not an opportunity available today to someone who's 24 or 25 years old. But the average age of an actual buyer, of all buyers today, is 57. Actually getting older in that as well. So that is who has the income. That is where the income is, and that who has the ability to purchase today. So I'll leave you with this quote. It's a recession of reduced purchasing power, not job security. We have jobs, we have opportunity, we just don't have the purchasing power because we don't have that median price to median home income. And at this point, I will introduce Ms. Kim Waters, who will share a few of things as well.
Why do the state numbers paint two completely different pictures of the state of Georgia? The latest U.S. financial report ranks Georgia 13th in fiscal stability, 14th in infrastructure, 14th in protecting our natural environment, 15th in the overall economy, 20th in crime and corrections, 25th in opportunity, 26th in education, 35th in healthcare. Quite frankly, that's a mediocre look on the state of Georgia. But on the other hand, Georgia has been ranked the #1 state to do business in for 14 consecutive years. We have the #1 busiest airport in the world. Georgia has been the largest recipient of electric vehicle capital for the last 3 years because we've become such an EV manufacturing hub. Georgia was named the #1 state for the best business climate. Georgia's workforce development program has repeatedly been cited as the nation's #1 workforce training program for 15 straight years. We've been number two state in the construction of new data centers. #3 in the nation for real wage growth at 4.3%, which is double the national average. We've been named the 3rd best place to retire. We're 4th in the country for population growth, and that's not percentage, that's people coming here. And people growth always shows up as real estate demand. And overall, I'm not sure if this is a plus or a minus, but we're ranked 25th in the country for home affordability. So we can think about that. Here at Norton, we have been in the forecasting business through multiple marketing cycles. We understand that data can be manipulated to paint the brightest sky or the darkest storm. Here it has been our goal at Norton Native Intelligence. That's why we focus on presenting a reality-based view of the marketplace. Its trends, velocity, underlying conditions. While the drama of the stock market is often short-lived, it's reflecting short-lived sentiment. Real estate, economic development, those are driven by long-term fundamentals, and as most of you in this room know who do this for a living, it's often a long fight, a hard-fought slugfest to the finish, as those of you in real estate know. These two powerful images I spoke about of Georgia, they paint two different stories, but they tell a powerful story. They reflect the image of an emerging world-class business environment, but also they remind us from where we've come. Poverty, an aging workforce, Appalachian squalor. Yet Georgia continues to rise and thrive. The strength of our progress here in Georgia means that we don't leave those challenges behind. Georgia is where business expansion always fuels stronger families, stronger communities, where our next generation can stay, work, and thrive right here at home. Golden hour for luxury housing. So we have seen the luxury market experience what many industry observers are calling its golden hour. We've seen a rare convergence of wealth, mobility, purchasing power, and lifestyle recalibration. This has created the strongest $2 to $5 million market we have ever seen. In 2024, we saw 23 homes sell on Lake Lanier between $2 and $4 million. In 2025, 35 homes sold between $2 and $5 million. What once represented an aspirational tier of real estate is now fueled by a class of buyers who are not just highly affluent, but extraordinarily decisive. This past summer, for instance, Thursday morning, I got a call from a past client. They had lived in Gainesville before, and they told me they wanted to come back to Gainesville. Keep in mind, this was on Thursday. 10 days later, we closed on a home that they bought to have a home here simply so that they could visit with the concierge doctor they started seeing while they were here, living here before. And then I learned that was home number 7 for them. Home number 7. So another client, just another story, they had previously lived in Gainesville, decided that they wanted a home base here simply for doctor visits, to be close to family. So They looked at a home via FaceTime, never saw it in person until after they closed on it. Wired the money, wired the cash, never saw the home in person until after the closing, and then later I found out that was home number 7 for them as well. So in a market where cash is king, these buyers like this are holding more influence than ever. They're reshaping expectations of value and the very definition of primary residence. Many of these buyers that we work with in this luxury market have multiple homes through several states and even often outside the country. This past year, overall, 29% of all home purchases were cash, meaning not relying on financing. High net worth individuals are now negotiating offers, often with cash rather than financing. This compresses timelines, removes contingencies, but it does more than just win bidding wars. It alters the seller's psychology knowing that you've got a cash buyer. Because paying cash signals certainty, speed, decisiveness, and security. It will give buyers an advantage even on houses with multiple offers. In the past year, I've seen these type buyers make fast decisions, and they're able to then secure the property that they want to match an evolving lifestyle. Home now has a broader definition. The $3 to $5 million price point was once considered the realm of primary homes. Sometimes second homes or escapes from Atlanta, but today we're seeing that this is the domain for homes number 3, 4, 5, and yes, sometimes even homes number 7. Many of these highly affluent people are first-generation wealth due to selling a business. They're assembling real estate portfolios like the previous generations built stock portfolios. Geographically strategic, lifestyle specific. A lake home for the summer, a mountain cottage for the fall, a coastal home for the winter, a condo in Atlanta for arts, culture, shopping. Increased mobility due to remote work flexibility and private aviation have driven this trend. These buyers typically want turnkey, fully furnished, designer-grade smart homes, sometimes even a helicopter pad. Perfection is no longer considered an option, it is the expectation. Another notable effect of this influx of buyers is that the standards continue to rise. Homes in the $3 to $5 million market must justify their position not only through square footage and architectural pedigree, but also lifestyle utility. Owner suites that include saunas, spa showers, resort-style outdoor living spaces, multi-generational accommodations. All of these are pretty much baseline expectations for this price point. Builders, designers, flippers, sellers who can understand that these are expectations will reap the rewards of buyers who are willing to pay simply to get what they want. For sellers, this period could represent extraordinary opportunity. But it's important to understand that today's luxury buyer is very discerning, analytical, and very quick to dismiss anything that looks like an afterthought, outdated, or unfinished. Pricing has to reflect not only the tangible features, but also the intangible experience of the home. Because face it, buying and falling in love with a home is still a very emotional experience. This golden hour may not repeat itself for decades. The luxury sector is not simply strong, it is thriving at historic levels. Thank you. And now we'll talk about home price corrections on the other end of the spectrum. So we've got back to normal people like me. So let's talk about how normal people live. In the normal people sector, over the last year, the Northeast Georgia housing market has entered a period of what we are calling a price correction or a price reset, as some of us are calling it. After years of substantial appreciation, this region's housing inventory has begun to build while prices have begun to fall. And the real story is not simply falling prices, but it's the widening gap between buyer wants, seller expectations, and how we as real estate brokers are struggling to bridge this divide. Our boom years of 20 to 25 have left a deep imprint on seller expectations. Markets like Hall, Dawson, Forsyth, Jackson, Cherokee, Pickens, they've all become magnets for suburban expansion and lifestyle relocations. The typical home no longer sells in days, but it will take months to sell, and often with multiple price reductions. We find ourselves as agents repeatedly presenting active competing listings to our sellers with comparable sales showing a softening trend that some are even calling a declining market. Longer days on the market, increased inventory, and buyers negotiating hard, even walking away sometimes. You're no longer pricing that house based on a comp that recently sold. Your pricing has to take into account the neighbor's price reduction and the other reductions in the neighborhood. This past September, roughly 6% of all listings in the country just simply withdrew. 85,000 listings just came off the market. And you know why? It's because it was the highest we'd seen in a decade because sellers just did not want to face the reality of today's value and continuing to reduce. Because ultimately, that home is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. This reluctance to face reality was especially visible in the $450 to $750 price point. Does that tell you something? That's where the best buys have been found this past year. But that's where we saw it especially because that's where we saw softening demand and rising inventory. I listed a home in a premier North Hall neighborhood this past April. And if you could see how this home looked, beautiful curb appeal. We listed at $750. Within the first week, we got an offer at $700. The sellers were insulted, frustrated, and they wouldn't even counter. The last week of December, we closed that house at $600,000. What some might call unrealistic expectations. In communities around Gainesville, Cumming, and even North Hall, the desire for move-in ready has clashed directly with sellers' reluctance to invest in improvements. This region, as you all know, we have an aging housing stock because so many of our legacy neighborhoods were built and developed in the 90s and early 2000s, especially around the lake. Many of these homes are now dated, and they need updates to compete with newer construction and to meet today's buyer demands. Yet many sellers believe that that scarcity-driven frenzy of the recent years still apply, when the buyers would overlook imperfections and offer anyway. Buyer behavior, though, has shifted dramatically. After 2 years of higher mortgage rates, inflation, buyers have become extremely cautious and price sensitive to everything. Buyers are no longer willing to tolerate homes needing significant updates and repairs. They want modern kitchens, neutral paint, and good home inspections. Without these, the buyers expect aggressive price discounts or else they'll move on. This disconnect has slowed the market even more in that there are many listings sitting out there that are overpriced, dated, or poorly presented, and these are going to sit sometimes for months. However, homes that are properly priced and show well, presented well, those are still going to sell and move efficiently, especially when they're in sought-after school districts and lake-adjacent neighborhoods. Wise sellers will follow broker suggestions in staging, painting, upgrading fixtures, and addressing inspection issues ahead of time with a pre-listing inspection. However, many sellers are still resisting. They're thinking that buyer is just going to show up, that right buyer. Meanwhile, buyers, empowered by more choices, are holding firm to their standards. As real estate brokers, it's our job to educate buyers on the difference between major deficiencies and manageable imperfections. And while we talk to sellers, we tell them about the importance of mainly condition and pricing. Our role is more of a market strategist and not that of a transaction facilitator, as some people think. This correction we're seeing is not necessarily a downturn, but it's a rebalancing, an opportunity. The market will ultimately reward those buyers and sellers who will adapt to this changing market. Thank you.
Switching gears from the housing, let's talk about data centers. So apartments, distribution warehouses, and trucking terminals have traditionally been hot button issues in zoning hearings. But now a new bombshell has entered the room: data centers. The opposition might be best to bury their cell phones, trash their computers, and stare at the home fireplace instead of a television or getting on Facebook if they really want this to go away. Today there's over 5,000 data centers in the US, and the real issue is not data centers. It's about technology and the invisible mechanics that power all the devices that power our daily lives. We will never become a less technological world. AI will change how data centers function, how they're powered, and how they are costed out. AI chips require much more power than existing services. While we believe the future is still human, the tools at our disposal will be assessed through the cloud, which, by the way, is powered in part by a computer housed in a data center in Lithonia, Georgia. So what is a data center? First, it's not an industrial building. It is a shell that has a floor, it has a ceiling, but with a complex set of wiring, power, and cooling equipment. The physical property of a data center costs exponentially more than a traditional industrial building. Because of the cost and because of the current power capacities that we have, they typically are phased over time. The rapid change of technology requires them to be adaptable and flexible, but the experts know the technology is rapidly changing, and we expect this technology to only improve over time. Data centers are here in Georgia. I would expect that many people in this room have never seen one. That's not a surprise. They are well hidden, well isolated. Generally speaking, they have significant buffers. But they are here in Georgia, and they're not going away, and more will come. Georgia's become a major hub for data center growth, and as you can see on this chart here, we rank 5th in the number of data centers currently. And again, more are coming. Amazon recently bought 1,000 acres in Lamar County, Georgia, which is Barnesville for all you Lamar County fans. They bought that land for $270 million. They bought dirt for $270 million. They didn't just buy dirt though, they bought power and water. This was part of a broader initiative that Amazon has to place $11 billion in Georgia for data centers. To add perspective, that purchase is 18 times the cost of the Louisiana purchase in today's dollars. Of historical note, Barnesville has a history of being the buggy capital of the South, meaning it has water and power. So you may think, wow, okay, $270 million. I want to sell my property for $270 million. I should be a data center. Great, it's just 3 easy steps. So first, you have to pay for a power study to find out if there's capacity. Okay, 150 grand. You know, nothing. It doesn't cost much. Just do that, 150 grand. Okay, great. You get the study back. You have power. So now what? Now you got to reserve that power. And quickly, you have to start making payments for a down payment of that power to the tune of about $7 million. And if your deal doesn't work out, it's non-refundable. Okay, great. You've done step 1 and step 2. Now step 3. Just build a new power substation. That's about $59 million. So the point in showing you this is these data centers are not going to be done fly-by-night by people who don't know what they're doing. They're going to be done by the hyperscalers, the Googles, the Microsoft, the Switches, those companies that have the capacity to write these kinds of checks. The rapid expansion of data centers presents significant challenges. A typical circa 2025 AI-driven data center consumes as much electricity as 100,000 households. And it also consumes a lot of water and every year, roughly more than millions of gallons every year. Reports of environmental hazards are inconclusive. Noise, vibration, emissions are all monitored, but there's no accurate measurement. I'll take a moment to remind you, in the 1980s, the big environmental scare was overhead transmission lines. Now kids play under it. In 2000s, it was the effects of cell phones and cell towers. You use those. Today, the buzz is the effects of the data centers, and time will tell the results. The tax benefits for these municipalities are mind-blowing. Imagine an infusion of $1 billion investment, which leads to $20 to $25 million a year in annual tax revenue. Think about the impact that is on these municipalities that have trouble making day-to-day operations pay. It's mouth-watering for governments, but they must weigh both sides and determine the cost-effective risk rewards and dream through all the unintended consequences. Our studies show that Americans' 10-year data center needs eclipse another 5,000 individual locations. That is more than double of what we have today. Reminder, there's only 4,600 Walmarts in the United States. So expect data centers to come. Our next trend is retail transformation. Retail in North Georgia is not dying, it's evolving. Headlines often focus on the challenges of brick and mortar stores, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. New retail construction continues. Older centers are being redeveloped, backfilled, and national and regional brands are expanding. What's changed is how they're doing it. One of the clearest shifts in retail design is the central role and demand of the drive-thrus. Before 2020, drive-thrus were highly valuable, but they weren't universal. Now they've become a non-negotiable part of tenant requirements. Every QSR, which is a quick service restaurant operator in particular, won't consider sites without the ability to handle multiple cars, mobile orders, and offer two-lane, dual-lane stacking. The reason is simple. We learned through the recession, through the pandemic, that drive-thrus protect sales during disruptions. When people can't get out of their car, they still have to eat, they still have to go through line. The drive-thrus also increase per-store revenue, they complement delivery and mobile ordering, and they reduce labor pressure inside the building. You can see this, by the way, even just Chick-fil-A, which we all know is the best, but look at what they're doing with their drive-thrus. Every time you go through, something's different. The attention that they pay to that is obvious. Also notice with coffee and beverage chains, these are traditionally dine-in experiences where you meet people at the coffee shop. Now you're seeing 7 Brews and scooters pop up all over the place, and they're designed around cars, not tables. So in North Georgia, where car travel is a way of life and pedestrian retail is limited, drive-through-centric design isn't a trend, it's an operational necessity. In retail, we talk about anchor. What's the anchor? What's the driver? Why are people going to that location? Well, what we have found is right now, the most stable anchor is the grocery store. Retail centers with grocery anchors remain the most resilient assets in the market. While many categories of retail were disrupted by e-commerce, grocery proved nearly Amazon-proof. And you may have read in recent headlines that Amazon failed at the grocery store. They're closing down their grocery store experiment. But yes, online delivery and curbside pickup changed how people shop, but they did not eliminate the physical grocery store. A grocery anchor drives daily traffic, supports inline tenants, and creates a stable revenue environment. As a result, landlords prefer grocery anchored centers. Investors still aggressively pursue these centers to purchase, and tenants ultimately, while they do want to be close to rooftops, they want to be, their safety in numbers. They want to be in a location where people have a reason to go there other than to go just to their store. National and regional grocers have expanded footprints. They've upgraded layouts, they've increased cold storage, they've added curbside lanes, and invested in automation and self-checkout. The grocery store has become the most reliable retail traffic generator, and its importance only grows as other categories consolidate. Because of this stability, grocery-anchored centers in North Georgia remain strong performers, even when other parts of the retail sector may not look so strong. For example, just here in Hall County, in the last 18 months, we've opened 2 new Publix, and we will soon open a new Kroger store. But retail isn't dying, it is adapting. In North Georgia, retail's future remains strong because it's evolving with the customer and not fighting against them. The tenants that survived the last 5 years, they may be paying much higher per square footage rent, but they're surviving by getting smaller footprints. They're faster, they're more convenient, they're more flexible. New retail development reflects that reality. Success isn't defined by the size of the box, it's defined by the efficiency of the whole experience. The winners will be the retailers who recognize that convenience is no longer a competitive advantage, but it's the starting point. So our 9th trend, and my last one, is jumpstart. And I'm not talking about what we all had to do our cars this week, but we need a jumpstart, a kick in the pants, and need to light a fire on the starter home movement. It's a word not many people hear anymore. We have adopted Commissioner Greg Poole's phrase that it's not workforce housing, it's not attainable housing, it's not affordable housing, it's starter homes. We need starter homes. Home ownership is the legacy we create and the shelter we provide. It's the greatest opportunity for wealth creation, retirement, security, and family connectivity. But what if this process never gets started? Are they destined to rent forever because the government may force two income earning families just to make ends meet? Mom has to stay home, mom has to go to work, dad has to go to work just to make ends meet. Is that the future of our country? We hope not, and we think not. Historically, traditional communities began with what we would today call a tiny house, something currently illegal in most communities. It's a 600 square foot box, a 20 foot by 30 foot simple structure. It could have a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, a bedroom, a bath. Very simple but affordable, especially when built on cheaper land out on the edge of town. Visit many American neighborhoods established before the 1920s and you can still witness many of these structures, although likely not still in their infant phase. And that's because they're designed to evolve. They were to be added on to, changed to suit the different needs over time. In those houses, you have a child? Okay, maybe you do an addition on the back. You have a second child? Okay, it's time for maybe a second floor. Did you save some money and now maybe you can add on from the front stoop and make it a full front porch? There are endless sets of variations that can be brought forth from the simple box, all based on the changing needs and resources of the time. It could be a home for someone with modest means. It could also be a home for someone that's affluent. Once established, a traditional neighborhood can always be adapted to fit the new needs. And critical to the way communities grow stronger over time, this approach allowed people to start with relatively little and incrementally build that into real wealth. This is all in sharp contrast to the way that Americans build houses today and neighborhoods today. Today we build individual homes and complete neighborhoods all at once to a finished state. There's no starting small and adding on in these houses as resources allow. The property's purchased using long-term financing, sold into a secondary market with banks and insurers requiring a finished product as a prerequisite to completing the transaction. And even if you were in one of these neighborhoods and you wanted to do a little add-on, a little addition, it might take 2 years because you got the HOA president breathing down your neck about whether you're doing it right or wrong. But the standardization of the core product and assembly methods have made the home building process hyper-effective. Theoretically, this should drive down the cost per square foot of the home, but the conundrum with that formula is that the price of a home has not gone down. Why is that? Well, the amount of square foot in a house has gone up a lot. So I would argue that this is largely a result of government overreach and zoning requirements that may have some good intentions, but instead create a barrier to entry for the first-time home buyer. For example, did you know that almost every lot approved in Hall County requires a home larger than 1,800 square feet? Excuse me, 1,800 heated square feet. That does not count the required 2-car garage that's not heated. and the required driveway that's long enough for 3 F-350s to back up in a row just in case that happens. Or for a sidewalk on both sides of the road. And for the pool you've got to build for the community, and the cabana, and the tot lot. All these things for the neighborhood. This is what the properties are zoned for because that's where they've been steered. Early in the 20th century, local government started overruling private property rights. So while housing regulations prey on our fears of anything that might go wrong, it will overlook everything that typically ends up going right in a development. The reality is the private sector, not the government, has built homes for over 99% of Americans. Zoning restrictions are supply constraints. Basic economic theory predicts, and many studies confirm, that housing markets in which supply cannot keep up with demand will see housing prices rise. Americans spend about 30% of their budget on housing, so this is not an issue of this is an issue of enormous consequences. So now I am seeing multiple commissioners in multiple counties expressing concerns to me and others that their kids can't grow up where they live, or can't live where they grew up. We're hearing that time and time again. It's not just Hall County, it is so many counties throughout this region. So the good news is the talented minds in North Georgia seem to be talking collaboration on this starter home conundrum. So starter homes aren't just houses. They're the roots of a vibrant community. Without them, we risk becoming a place where people work, but they can't live. We want our teachers, nurses, emergency services workers to all live in the community that they serve. And most of them would qualify for a $250,000 home purchase. The problem is that there are no options for that $250,000 home purchase, generally speaking. So, for example, look at Hall County, this slide up here. There are roughly 13 houses on the market in Hall County right now, under $250,000. 13 houses. Those homes on average are 43 years old. They will need a lot of expenses and maintenance as you move in. And they're probably just as unrealistic as sellers as the ones that Kim's talking about with the $2 million houses. So they're not willing to make improvements. And based on the inventory, I can see why somebody might wait. So there are no options for the $250,000 and under buyer. Looking at those options, it's no wonder the national average of the first-time home buyer, as Tommy mentioned earlier, has increased from just in 1992, it was 28 for the first-time home buyer. Today it's 40 years old. That is a big deal. The starter home is a journey of family energy, social home security, and family life cycles. Historically, the typical family buys 3 homes during their life. They buy a starter home, then they move up, and then they downsize. And I think a lot of the people in this room have lived that exact same story out. And I want a little bit of interaction here because I'm curious, because my theory is, well, I'll ask the question. Who here in this room has wanted to downsize, but they can't because they can't find what they're looking for? All right? And the rest of y'all said you're going to downsize, and then you just bought a bigger house and spent more money. But I personally believe that there are a lot of people who would like to move into a smaller house, sell their house, take that equity, buy something new and smaller, and that'll break the chain or cycle of people being able to buy maybe the house they've been in forever. And by doing that, we need more inventory. But if this generation that can't buy right now is stuck in a never-ending cycle of rental, it's no longer starter, move up, downsize ownership. It might look like apartment rental, and then single-family rental, and then maybe a single-family rental with a yard, and then a retirement rental, and zero equity build up, and endless subsidies of government support. The cycle needs to be broken and fast. We need starter homes, whatever size, density, construction method we can come up with. A reminder, the American dream is all about hope. Hope for economic progress, hope that the fruits of progress will be widely shared, and hope that people will pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and invest in their future by investing in AI.
So I think this first question is going to be the one that really encompasses most things. And Diane, I'll start with you. Is what has stood out most to you in 2025? What trend or something unusual that you've seen in 2025?
Well, I don't know that it's the one thing that I did note, not that it's unusual, but in looking at the market, we've all heard the description, flat as a pancake. Well, that's where we are with residential. I was looking at 25, 24, and I saw some statistics, and I thought, you know, this is just too, there were numbers that were just exactly the same. So I then looked at 23. Same thing. I found that all 3 years, the average days on the market for active listings was 95, all 3 years. The number of listings on the market was 1391 in 23, 1392 in 24, and 1391 in 25. So I just thought that was...
And that was in the mountain region, correct?
Well, that was all of our market
Yeah.
area, which comprised 13 counties, I think. I didn't include every single one. But the trend is just, it's just flat for now. But we can be eager to look for an adjustment or whatever it takes, but the more people that can buy homes, of course, the better. I do have some concern that I've seen some homes where we've, appears that there's been loan modifications and where that's going to take us because they tack on what's in arrears to the back end. And then, you know, 30 years or if they have a home that long, it's just going to present a problem. So there's some out there that are upside down now, but we'll look for better days.
Yeah. And we've heard of potentially 50-year mortgages, which I can't even imagine what that'll do.
I just don't know that that's the answer.
Yeah. So CJ, same question to you. So what has stood out to you in 2025?
To me, 2025 was kind of the year of change and innovation. Stephen hit on it, but data center is a hot topic. Gets everybody squirming in their seat a little bit. I think it's something that's here, and like Stephen mentioned, it's here to stay and grow. But a year of change. I mean, we started out with tariff scares. A lot of people in this room probably were impacted somewhat by that, depending on the business that you're in. I know in our business, especially in the industrial sector, we probably had clients that didn't know what that was going to look like. But I think the year started off like that, stabilized a little bit, and I know several people that kind of had a jump start to maybe fourth quarter of this year. So hopefully that trend continues in 26, but definitely a year of change. Hopefully this year would be a year of stability and growth from there.
I think that's what we're seeing. And then Diane, interest rates have always been a hot topic. We've seen that. Last year we talked about it, what interest rates would do. We just wanted them to get under 6%. We actually saw that for a short period of time this year. What kind of impact do you think that's had on the market?
Thus far, I don't think it's had very much at all. The reason, of course, is that the housing price, which is around $400,000 for our entire area, the income that's being made is difficult for people to even be able to afford that, even at 6%. So I don't know, they say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know the per square foot price for new homes is $250 a square foot. I mean, it could be more, but of course, with Kim's luxury, it could be $500, who knows? So, and with the cost of supplies, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the challenge.
Yeah. CJ, how about you on the commercial side? The interest rates impact investors, builders. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it impacts everything. I mean, the cost of money is much more than it used to be, of course, but you know, I think about the small business owner that maybe is looking to expand or, you know, looking for that SBA product that they lost out on for a few months this year, you know, just from a government shutdown or, you know, rate changes in that matter. But yeah, I think it definitely has an impact on it, top to bottom, especially when it, you know, starts with the consumer that they're dealing with every day, for sure.
Good. So this is a question for both ladies. So CJ, I'll start with you since you have the mic, but and we talked a little bit about this and alluded this in our trends, but infrastructure is certainly a big factor, whether it's residential or commercial, you know, sewer, water, all of those things. We know that municipalities, that is, you know, we've seen a lot of restrictions because of those things. What do you see, is that still a big challenge? Do you see municipalities addressing this issue? Obviously, it's a big impact as far as financially is concerned. So what do you see out there as far as a lot of these municipalities attacking this issue?
I mean, we've got both ends of the spectrum across the North Georgia area. I mean, we've got some counties up here that are taking advantage of grant money, really putting it into play, and every time you're driving down a major thoroughfare, you're seeing dirt move. You're seeing pipes go on the ground, a lot of improvements, whether that's for neighborhood or whatever that be. And then you've got some counties that can't even issue a water permit, you know, so I think the challenges are there. I think some counties are leaning a lot on developers, some of which are probably in this room, to fund that. So, you know, infrastructure plays a big role, but I think that, I think I wrote about this a couple years ago in the forecast too, but I think the counties that can get that in line and plan well for that and heed the advice of, you know, people that know what they're doing in that realm, I think they win.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that too.
It's fair to say those counties will have an advantage for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Diane?
I think the struggle with infrastructure is that it'll be forever. You know, I mean, I don't think that it will ever be solved because society evolves, different, and of course, people's desires change, but I think there will always be the issue with infrastructure.
So we've always said the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The best time to put in sewer was 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, we need it, but we need it now.
But you got cost involved,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of it. So, but I see that in our area, that the counties are paying attention and the cities are paying attention. So we'll just have to see how much money we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Two more quick questions. CJ, I'll go back to you. You concentrate on the Georgia 400 market. What do you specifically see in that market? What types of product types? Where do you see the opportunity?
I think Georgia 400 is seeing a different kind of change maybe to what we see driving around in this area. You drive a Georgia 400 now, you know, maybe think back to 2015, 2016, you've got Publixes on every, you know, at the start of every county. You've got, I think it's over 4 million under construction or finalizing right now of industrial space being built. Georgia 400 is seeing a lot of change. There's a lot of talk of this new beach pass type lanes coming in. I think that'll change at least the, as one of our colleagues calls it, the parking lot of 400. You go up and you got to come right back down. It doesn't really go much of anywhere for now. But I think that'll change that too. But Georgia 400 is seeing a ton of change. So something to watch. So,
and Diane, being up in the mountain market, what you've seen is a lot of second homes. We've obviously heard Kim talk about people not only having their second homes, but their fifth, sixth, and seventh houses. And we see obviously that vacation home, VRBO. Is that a trend, and is that still something that you still see an opportunity in that market?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing like it was during the COVID madness, but there's still money. There's a lot of cash buyers. There are second home folks that are looking that aren't necessarily retirement, but they want to get that home so that when they do retire in 7, 8, 10 years, then they will have that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always ask, this is always my last question, I ask the same question every year because I think it's the best thing that we can tell the crowd, but if you could give the audience any piece of advice as far as it comes to real estate, investment opportunity, what would you say?
Patience.
Yeah.
Patience, because it will turn around.
Yeah. CJ?
I guess on the same token, but I'll repeat what most of the commercial and acreage group says every year is buy land, they're not making any more of it. And that's a patient game, so to really offer that.
We've always said real estate's a long game.
It is a long game.
So, well, thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause. It seems that our property, that is so precious to each one of us, is protected by the creators of our American Constitution, is no longer our property to have and to hold, to work and to call our home. If you drill down into current governments, news reports, or growing social media, your property is not your property. It's your next door neighbors telling you what to do. It's the local governments who impose excessive tax regulations, ordinances, overlaying district standards and codes. The precept of our United States Constitution and a fundamental belief of Norton Native Intelligence is that a farmer has the right to farm, to raise livestock, to grow chickens, to subdivide his property as generations have done for their children's use, spread manure, and they have the right to cash out and sell the farm when they want to. And typically, when the children don't want to come back. The warfare is almost hand-in-hand combat. It's being played out daily across our news headlines. The solid truth in many eyes is that it's become a modern-day witch hunt where you can say anything on social media and the mob will believe you. Hostility has morphed over the last 20 years. There was a time where Norton was rezoning something and there were 200 neighbors. They'd show up in red shirts. Red shirts is not just a new invention. And drowning letters over and over to the newspaper and signs in a neighborhood that said, Norton is not our friend. Fighting a new subdivision, which today is a jewel in Hall County, called Marina Bay. Now social media followers are creating electronic feeding frenzies of half-truths, blow-by-blow video commentary, vicious character assassinations, sometimes slander and libel. If you read the postings, every landowner is greedy. Brokers make millions. Government administrators are all on the developer's payroll. Elected commissioners are on the take. And no one's honest, no one's trustworthy, and no one's truthful. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not so. Just not so. We believe that administrators are doing their jobs almost under hostile artillery fire and should be paid combat wages. Our commissioners and council people are meagerly paid. They're virtually volunteers for the abuse and hot coals that they're walking through every day. This is fascinating. This is a fascinating statistic. You know, I'm an info junkie, and so I had our information staff, our research staff, research all of the social media groups in Northeast Georgia. Not in Gwinnett, all in Northeast Georgia. And the subscribers, and I subscribe, we all subscribe, and sometimes we subscribe to more than one. But there are 350,000 subscribers to social media in Northeast Georgia. And yet there's only 40,000, maybe, subscribers to our pretty newspapers. Journalists have strong codes of conduct. They have 2 sources or more. They fact check. Their editors fact check. They have ethical standards. In social media, that's not necessarily so. The best Facebook invention would be an enhanced AI fact checker. But then it would probably put all those businesses out of business because it would
cause 90% of the content to evaporate. How can you, on one hand, support the preservation of family farming and at the same against residential development and the farmer cashing out, and then be opposed to the county creating a farm training program for high schoolers? It doesn't work. The elected officials, unfortunately, feel powerless to go on the offensive for fear of the wrath of some of these bullies going after them next. We need to figure out how to create human firewalls. But the basic element of this is private property rights. Will legal bills and challenges outpace administrative costs of city and county planning departments? Have we gotten to the point where small, loud groups with talented typing fingers shape our government versus the other 75,000, the 250,000, the 300,000 people that live in that region? We need to elect officials and administrators and encourage them to outrun the noise and focus on fact. The silent majority needs to fight back, or we're going to continue to lose our private property rights, which that means our value of our homes, the value of our land, the value and freedom. Erosion of private property rights and growth sometimes is like seeing sausage made. You don't want to see it, smell it, or touch it. But yet we must figure out how to fight and protect the value of our number one asset, which is our real estate. It's not our 401k, it's our real estate. We have worked hard and long to build that real estate portfolio. We must push back, make equally loud noise for our property rights, to own, use, and live in our property. And we have to remember, in this wonderful community that we live in, we have to look at the white space of this community, not the dark spots. And by doing so, we make a living for us and our children, and we make a life for our family and our community. Thank you very much.